Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back to Writing Quest. My name is Brenden Pugh.
And I'm Ayden.
Ayden. So if you haven't joined us before, we are writing a book.
Co-authoring a book together.
Yes. I'm writing a part. He writes a part. I write another part. We're passing it back and forth. Hopefully we end up with something that doesn't completely suck.
Oh, no, the rough draft always sucks.
Yes.
The rough draft always sucks.
So, but we're looking to basically take you along for the whole ride. You see every part of our creative process, every idea we have, every terrible word we write.
Everything. It's all right there.
Full spoilers.
Full spoilers.
So if you don't want to know what the story is, then don't watch any of this. But we want you to know, so watch it. All right, Ayden wrote the last bit.
Yep.
Which I read and I have reacted to. Shall we go to that now?
Yeah, sure.
Which way do we point?
Do you want to point? I think we went left last time.
Should we go right?
Yeah, sure. 3, 2, 1.
All right, everyone. So I just I got Ayden's what he wrote. So I had written a part before about basically had this character Agorath who saw a new land. He's trying to bring his race here to live. So he was in the middle of viewing this new world that he has discovered, and then he ran into a potential foe or friend in the form of a wolf. So, but he's never really seen a wolf. That's kind of a new thing for him. I sent it off to Ayden. Ayden wrote this little bit. I'm not always going to read it because it's not, might could be a lot of words, but it's pretty short what he added, so I'm going to read it. Here we go. There wasn't a doubt in his mind this beast couldn't tear him apart in moments. Oi, you're going to kill it or keep it? Shouted a voice some yards behind Agorath. He leapt out of his skin, almost losing his bowels in the process. Agorath looked behind him to see a familiar yet unwelcome figure hobbling towards his crouching place. Brick, Agorath hissed. Keep your voice down, you buffoon. Why? I's already run off. Brick cast off Agorath's urgency. Sure enough, when Agorath turned back around, the hulking beast had disappeared into its woods. You fool. It was speaking to me. Agorath stood and confronted Brick. It's a native. It's a big dog, Agorath. No need to get sentimental about the new lands already. It looked fluffy enough to make a decent coat for winter, honestly. Brick rested his bum leg on a rock in the clearing. It spoke to me, Brick. It doesn't seem too happy about our presence here. Agorath kicked Brick's bad leg and caused the big man to cringe. What are you doing here, Brick? Only scouts are meant to be this far out. Chickens don't like me taking their eggs, but it doesn't stop me from having a scramble, Brick chuckled, showing off his grungy teeth. I'm here to tell you to make it back to the waypoint. Why? It's Gaian's wife. She lost the baby. Traveling took its toll. You're to go back and help with the send-off. Okay, my first reaction to this, and this is kind of, I know that this comes from a place of this was my story originally, and so I'm giving it to someone else, and so it's not where I would have went. But my first reaction is to completely reject all of this. Yuck. But it does give me a couple of thoughts, so I like what however much I resist against it, I do kind of like what he did. If I look at what I had written before was kind of this serene, here is the description of the land and it's all so beautiful and everything is so picturesque. And then he's just oi, you gonna kill it or keep, that's very Ayden to do, to just kind of completely undermine and change something and go the complete opposite direction. It's different than what I would do, but I think I like it. I like going a way that I wouldn't have thought. So in my head, Agorath and these magic users were very, regal, but now he's added this character Brick who is kind of not that, apparently. Well, I'm not sure what Brick is. The big thing that's getting to me, two things. One is the waypoint. So we talked about, I think in the last episode, I don't know if they came over on ships or if they walked great ways or whatever. So he's added this thing of the waypoint, so it'll be fun to explore what that is, whether maybe some kind of they transported or I don't know. And then Gaian, I don't know what exactly how that goes, but I'm going to say Gaian. Sounds good to me. Gaian's wife, she lost the baby traveling. So apparently whatever traveling they did get, sounds like he's going the direction of the traveling was pretty rough. There must be more people with him. I think before in the last episode we talked about I didn't know if he was alone or if there's more people. And so this guy and his wife, Gaian, obviously must be someone who's important to him. Anyways, that'll give me some things to think about. Back to the discussion.
Okay, we're gonna talk about what I wrote, and I'm gonna hear what Brenden thinks, and we're gonna talk about this ish. So,
All right. I have to tell you, my very first, when I read it, I immediately went, hate it, nope, reject all of it, done. Not because it was bad, but because it wasn't mine. It wasn't what I wrote. So that was which that's why it's good, because, where I would have maybe went with it next is completely opposite from where you would. Right. But that's okay, because I think it makes it better. And actually what it did is it led me, so I read it and I was like, nope. But then as I thought about it, I had to sleep, which is always good. And then I woke up and I just had a bunch of brain babies about it. Yeah. So in the last episode, we talked about how I wasn't sure what the conflict is, any of that.
Any idea. He just had the scene in his head. This is where he wanted to...
Your prompt gave me the conflict. So I want to talk about that. So basically, Ayden brings in this character named, is it Brick?
It's Brick.
Brick? Okay.
It's Brick. This guy is an idiot. What inspired me was, originally I was like, oh man, it's so serious, this whole thing. It's a Bob Ross painting. It's ethereal. It's poetic, what this guy is feeling. And I just want to undercut that with someone who is not serious at all. And originally I was thinking someone like Gobber from How to Train Your Dragon. Mm-hmm. But then I was like, but I don't want him to be a Gorath's friend.
When I read it, I was like, Ayden, I wrote this awesome thing, Bob Ross scene setting, and then you just undercut. That's literally what I thought. But anyways, so you have this character Brick. All of a sudden he comes in. He scares off the wolf. Had read what we'd done before. Agorath was having this moment with this new creature that he had discovered or seen. So he was trying to figure out what to do with that. So basically this guy comes in, he's scares it off, interrupts completely, which is basically how our life goes.
A little bit.
I'm just there and you're just well, bam!
Yeah, pretty much. Brendan's epicness, and then I'm but did you know?
We won't even talk about the bees. Anyways, bees. So nope, nothing about the bees. He comes in and he basically is like, hey, bro, what are you doing? What's going on? So they go down, they have this whole kind of thing. Ogorath gets mad at him. But this is what got me. He says, Brick chuckled, showing off his grungy teeth. I'm here to tell you to make it back to the waypoint. Which one, the waypoint? Because remember, last time we talked about, we didn't quite know, were they ships? Did they just walk a lot? How did they get there? So now you've planted the seed of a waypoint. Not sure exactly what that is. So I'd like you to talk about that when we get there. And then he says, why? And then he says, it's Gaian?
Gians? I was thinking just Gian.
I kind of like Gaian.
Like Gaian?
It's Gaian.
I think that it's one of those things that, it depends on who you meet. Culturally, it's whoever wants to pronounce it however. I was thinking Ian in my brain, and then I said Gian, but I like Gaian too.
To be determined.
I'm
going to say Gaian, because that's how I read it when I read it. The line is, it's Gaian's wife. She lost the baby. Traveling took its toll. You're to go back and help with the send-off. So there's a whole lot to unpack there.
Right.
Which gave me, this whole inciting incident. Okay. Colin, I'm making a declaration.
Also, just so you know, that entire everything that just happened there, I had no idea what I was setting up. The waypoint, I was like, it feels like there is a waypoint.
It's kind of like when I wrote The Awakening. I'm like, I don't even know what that
is. Exactly.
It literally could be anything.
They had to come from somewhere. He's clearly scouting out this area, and he's he has to go back somewhere. He has to go back to wherever, and I was like, waypoint. Gian's wife, I had no idea. In my writing video where I wrote this, I talk about how I was like, this story is both about rebirth and birth, because this is the beginning of something new. I think that this is so symbolic of she lost the baby. Whoever she is the old world is dead.
And then it totally so this is what I got from it. So Gaian and Agorath are brothers.
Okay.
Cool. So I'm declaring that they're brothers. So the baby would have been Agorath's niece or nephew. Gaian's wife would be his sister-in-law now. This is the central conflict.
This is the thing that sparks whatever the conflict is.
Well, Agorath is a magi. He's a magic guy. He's a wizard, whatever he is.
Pew pew.
Yeah. Gaian is not magic. He's part of the non-magical part of their race. So this one brother's magical, the other brother's not magical.
This is the first time that we're seeing this. So in your original rough draft,
all
of them had magic.
So where I'm going to go with this is that this origin story is going to be the origin story for the human race and for the magi race. Okay. Basically, what's going to happen is Agorath is going to start off, and we think he's the good guy. Gaian, so his wife, the baby dies. Maybe his wife dies. Maybe he has this huge tragical event. Tragic? tragic event and magical, tragical. See where I got? Anyways,
Magical tragical.
Gaian kind of descends into grief. And so now they're in this mode where they're meeting the wolves for the first time.
Okay.
Agorath, while grief stricken, it wasn't his baby and wife's, but he's been a good place. Gaian descends into a bad, like, negative grief space. So they're trying to deal with this new world situation, but they're both the leaders and they're both on completely different sides.
Right.
They end up fighting, but eventually how I would love to switch it is Agorath ends up becoming the bad guy and Gaian becomes the good guy.
Okay.
And then Gaian and the wolves form the beginning of the hunters and the humans, which also gives us werewolves. Which I'll get to in an episode of Story Elements, which is another thing. And then Gorath becomes this magi race. You know, maybe Gaian blames Agorath for his grief makes him blame them for the previous destruction of their worlds. Okay. So when he comes into this, he doesn't trust him to rebuild. You know, like
there's kind of a stigma almost.
Right.
Like,
and then maybe when Agorath has good intentions at first, but then when he discovers the magic of the place and the wolves, maybe that starts to corrupt him, which starts turning him to the bad guy.
And then, against the wolves even.
And against the wolves. Then Gaian has to like start leading the resistance towards Agorath. Like there's a lot of, see what I'm doing?
There's lots of places that this could go. Yeah. And I think that it's...
Did I just blow up your mind?
No, it opens up the story. I think the baby dying and this whole personal conflict, I think it sets up, because you got to have a personal conflict, you have to have a medium-sized conflict like in the community, and then you have to have the world conflict, like why is this all important? And I think that we've set up the world conflict, like we got to get to a new place, otherwise we're all gonna die, and then a community conflict, so like Gian, Agorath, his wife, and then the settlement, the waypoint really is what it could be, I don't know, and then this personal conflict between the two.
So the conflict of the story comes down to, you've got two brothers that end up on opposite sides of a problem and they're fighting about it. And we think this guy's good at first and this is bad, but then as the story goes, it comes out that the bad guy actually ends up being the good guy.
Right.
And the guy you thought was the good guy who you're rooting for ends up being the bad guy.
I really hope that this is an epic foreshadowing for Writing Quest.
We just end up completely destroying everything and fighting because
two brothers on the opposite side of a problem. One's a good guy, and then you switch back and forth. Oh man!
At the end of so Gaian actually becomes like the human race. His descendants are the human race that settle in the Kesrek Peninsula, which we'll get to in a different thing. And then maybe he forms Whiteforge. Is that what you just thought?
I was just thinking that. I don't know.
Whiteforge is the best thing that has ever been created in this world.
I think so.
That might be my best
it's
story
a gem.
element.
It's not the main thing, but it's a gem in the story.
Yeah. Anyways, what do you think? Thoughts?
Okay, so you want to know what my favorite line in this that I wrote is?
Probably where he says, oi.
No, actually. My favorite line in this is, chickens don't like me taking their eggs, but it doesn't stop me from having a scramble.
That's pretty good.
I feel like that just paints, without telling you who Brick is, it shows you who Brick is. And that's such a mystery. Like, authors always say, show, don't tell.
It's like, what does that mean?
What does that mean?
Yeah, like, how do you actually pull that off?
And then even people that are like, this is what it means, only gets you really halfway there. So it's like adding that little, the seasoning onto the character, I think. So that's my favorite point.
I really do also like his first line. So this is part of why, like, originally when I read it, I was like, oh, but I have to learn to like it. The first thing that Brick says out of nowhere is, oi, you gonna keep it or kill it? And I was like,
which, if you think
but it's good. Yeah.
If you think about it, that sets up the entire story. Is like, is he going to side with the wolves or is he going to go against the wolves?
That's true.
And then
it's a foreshadowing of the whole, like,
which in the first two pages, that's the middle of the second page that we set up. This is the entire story.
That is good.
That, right? You know what I mean?
Good work.
And that didn't come from, we had this epic planning session. It was like, we gotta foreshadow this. No, that was just, we were writing and it happened organically. And that's what's important, is like, you gotta let some of it be organic and you have to also know where you're going.
I think that's why this process is gonna work, though.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I wrote a thing and then you wrote a thing and then I'm like, holy crap, look, think of these, I just had all these thoughts and now I can go,
Okay, so I wanna ask you, I think that we should talk about, where do you see see the distant where this is going, and where do I see this going? And that can be anything that's brought up here.
So just as far as the story, like in the future of the story?
Yeah,
or
where do you kind of see this going?
in the future version of this, there's elves and dwarves and human, the things you would expect, orcs, all that stuff. I would love, like, this is an origin story, so I want to get to basically like a place where not necessarily up to the point of the other story I'd written, but at least setting it up. So like I talked about, maybe the humans are descendant of Gaian.
Right.
Then the Magi are descendant of Agorath. Maybe there's a way we can end up tying in like where the elves come from. Maybe the elves are already here because they are such a long-lived race. Maybe the elves and the wolves just don't. Maybe they just don't know about each other yet.
Maybe they have to seek each other.
Where do the dwarves come from? Do they just do rocks just stand up and then become a dwarf? Like, I don't know.
Is it Tolkien? Who knows?
Yeah, what's here already is a question.
Right.
As we go. Then the next big thing is which magic systems.
Sorry.
So magic systems. So the center of the magic system is the idea of the Evertree, which it doesn't have to say the Evertree. I don't know if that's been used or not. That's just what I call it.
There's big trees.
Yeah. So in the future of this story, there is Tel Tirith Tal is the main city where they all races come together and gather. And that city is built around the Evertree. We could encounter in this quest for them finding magic in Escaradoth and in with the wolves, maybe they discover the Evertree, which begins Agorath's corruption.
It could be, yeah.
Because he realizes, maybe they're magical now, but they become more powerful in the discovery of it.
Right.
And so then maybe.
So, I think that we need to define what it means by what they do as magic, because at this point, so we've talked about this before, is the reason why their lands are dead and dying is because there was an Evertree there, which is the same thing. It's all connected.
Yes. So there's an idea for actually the sequel story. So this is like a prequel, but then there's the main story, and then I already have some ideas for a sequel story. It's a whole mess. So
journals just full of stuff.
And in that story, you discover that there's more than one Evertree in different places that are all connected via magic. I thought I had about the magic because, in the last one we said magic systems. I had to think about that. This is my thought. It's got a little bit of the Force in that magic manifests everyone can kind of touch magic, and it manifests differently for different races, different people. The Magi, maybe they use it more like a Jedi would use the Force, but then say the dwarves, maybe their magic is they can sense things in the ground, like different minerals, and that's how they, I'm just spitballing here. I have no idea. That
or
a horrible idea.
Earthbending.
I have an idea of dark elves, that are kind of, there's just a few of them, and their magic is more sensory, they can hear really well and they can smell for miles, and so and then when the wolves and the hunters come together finally, the way their power manifests is in the elemental stuff we've talked about, where they can control fire or water or whatever. The magic system is fleshing out.
It's fleshing out, and he in the past has told me, he just calls me or he texts me, he's like, Ayden, I don't care about magic systems anymore. They can do magic because they can do magic. And then later in the story, he's writing and he's like, okay, I have a magic system again. Yeah. I have to have it because this plot point.
Because every time you hit a plot point, and then I'm like, crap, I have to figure out how to explain magic. And then I have to go back to the beginning and be like, okay, how does magic work?
Exactly.
It's a mess.
The first chapter, you've rewritten, 12 times?
Oh, yeah. The only two scenes that have made it through from the beginning to end of me writing that are the first two, but they've changed forms a lot. It's the same basic idea, but...
Again, he's done this before where, Ayden, I'm cutting the first chapter again. I just can't put it in there. And then the next day he's like, it has to stay in, because if it's not in, then,
Yeah.
So
I'm going to deep sigh this.
Okay, so you've said where your bit is going. I'm going to say where I think... So we know where it's going that way, which also, we don't know the timeline of this. We don't necessarily know how far along...
I'm not exactly sure. I did think about that. I was thinking about it this morning. I was like, how many years is this before? I don't know.
Yeah,
is it? It's hard. Is it a couple hundred? Is it a couple...
something.
It's hard to say.
Well, I think this is going. A couple of different things. First thing, Agorath and Brick. right? Everything in the story, I feel like we have a flipping in nature of some sort. Like it's a birthing, rebirthing kind of thing, right? Agorth and Brick, first time you see him, they don't like each other. But I feel like it's going to be a reluctant friendship that builds over time. And like Gian and Agorath, like as Gian becomes more radicalized maybe, or they both do in their own separate ways.
That's a good way to put that, keep that note, because like I want him to seem like he's getting radicalized, only to realize he's the good guy.
Right, exactly. Like he is going so against the grain. And then Agorath and Gian, like as they go apart, they both reluctantly become closer together. And I think that in a way, in the future, we could look back and be like, man, I used to hate you so much, you know?
Right.
And so that'll flip. And same thing with how the relationships between the wolves and Agorath, because I feel like Agorath is going to start that relationship, because clearly, like that's first contact.
He's going to kind of do the we need to pursue a friendship with them because they were here. Like he's going to seem like a peacemaker, only to realize like the power they have, and then he's going to get corrupted. And
exactly. He's being peaceful for the sake of we need this thing. So he's thinking about his people first, and then Gian is I feel like is going to have that insight of, don't you see that this is
what happened before?
This is all what happened before. Even though your intentions are good, we can't do this again. So yeah, that's kind of where I see that going.
Because part of the motivation is he would blame Agorath. Right. They had to leave their homeworld because of how magic users in Agorath burned it up. So in the leaving, that caused his family to be killed. So he blames Agorath eventually for their death, which would fuel his anger towards him and distrust. See what I mean?
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I wasn't listening to a thing you just said. I was in my own world. I need you to say it again.
Okay. Gian ends up blaming Agorath for the death of his family because they had to leave their homeworld because of Agorath.
Got you.
So
he blamed that traveling.
Traveling is what killed them. Blaming goes to Agorath, and then that's what fuels his descent of anger.
I like it.
So what were you thinking when you weren't listening?
Nothing about what we're talking about.
You saw a thing.
I saw a thing. I got taken out. So you can't see this, but over there's a hook thing that's holding stuff. And I was like, man, I really like that. I really wish that I could set that on the ground, but there's not like front leg. Squirrel. Just
total squirrel.
And I lost it. You're writing next.
I'm writing next.
Okay. I'm not going to try to inform what you're writing.
I'm just going to take it from here. There we go. Thank you for watching Writing Quest. Subscribe.
Comment down below if you have any thoughts or ideas. If there's anything that struck a chord with you.
Yep. Like, share, everything. We're on Instagram and Twitter.
And we're on Wattpad.
So if you want to read the story along with us, I'm posting it on Wattpad as we write it. So there's no exactly as it is written. I'm not like editing it before it goes up. Right. Post, it's up. There's no changes. It'll just be updated live as we go.
Exactly.
It is funny. I texted you last night and I was like, you do realize that even though we're doing all these videos and stuff, we still have to write a book.
Yeah. You said,
Did you get a little like,
I was like, ugh. Because the very first episode, I had just finished editing, and you texted me that,
and then I was like, you still got to write a book.
Writing a book is hard enough when you just only write the book. I'm in it for the long haul. This is going to be great.
It's going to be great. Thank you for watching Writing Quest. We'll see you next time.
Peace. Are we doing that? I really hope that doesn't become our thing. Now, whatever.
It's done.